Stephen A. Smith, the prominent ESPN commentator, recently criticized the decision to exclude Caitlin Clark and Arike SNUB from the USA basketball women's national team roster. He argued that their exclusion was not purely based on basketball merit, but rather involved politics and other factors beyond just on-court performance. When Smith raised this point, he faced pushback from some of his ESPN colleagues, particularly Andrea Adelson. Adelson seemed to disagree with Smith's assessment, suggesting that team selection often involves considerations beyond just talent, such as personality and team chemistry. However, in a later segment, Smith pressed Adelson on this point, asking her directly if she was admitting that politics and ancillary things beyond basketball impact team selection decisions. Adelson acknowledged that this was indeed the case, confirming Smith's original contention. This led Smith to call out what he saw as hypocrisy. Adelson and other ESPN personalities had criticized him for making the same point earlier, but now were tacitly admitting he was correct. Smith noted that he had faced backlash for his initial comments about Caitlin Clark, but now Adelson was effectively conceding his perspective. The crux of the issue seems to be that some ESPN commentators, who are closely connected to the women's basketball world, were initially resistant to the idea that non-basketball factors influence team selection. They appear to take offense at Smith's comments, perhaps seeing them as a critique of the women's game. However, when pressed, Adelson acknowledged that politics and favoritism do in fact play a role, just as Smith had argued. This led him to call out the apparent double standard. He had been criticized for making the same point that Adelson was now validating. Ultimately, the debate highlights the complex dynamics around discussions of women's sports, where there may be sensitivities and defensiveness around any perceived criticism or questioning of decisions. Smith's approach was direct and confrontational, while Adelson seemed reluctant to fully admit the validity of his original stance. The episode underscores the challenges of having nuanced, objective conversations about the factors that influence team selection and other decisions in women's basketball. There appears to be a fine line between constructive analysis and commentary that is perceived as unfairly critical or dismissive of the women's game. Moving forward, this incident may prompt further reflection on how to have productive dialogues about women's sports that acknowledge the role of non-athletic considerations without being seen as undermining the legitimacy or importance of the competition itself. Striking that balance is an ongoing challenge, as this exchange between Smith and Adelson has demonstrated.